Downing Street has defended the way that coronavirus testing information had been shared with local authorities following criticism it has been done too slowly. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said detailed local data had been shared since April. But in Leicester, where coronavirus restrictions were reimposed yesterday, the Mayor, Sir Peter Soulsby, said officials only received detailed information on Thursday night. So let's find out what went on. Claire Wenham is Assistant Professor of Global Health Policy at the London School of Economics and joins me now. Claire, it's good to have you with us. Can we just go back in time, because I want our viewers to understand what data was being published to understand what might have gone on in Leicester. So as I understand it, Public Health England published a weekly breakdown of the infections in two categories. There were tests from hospitals, which were known as Pillar 1, and then there were tests from commercial labs that process the at-home and drive-through tests, which were known as Pillar 2. But it seems to me that Leicester weren't seeing the full picture, maybe not seeing these Pillar 2 results at all, and 90% of the new cases were under Pillar 2. Is that how you understand it?
It is, and it's really alarming that not all this data is being shared and not being shared equitably. And I think it reveals a much broader tension between the centralisation of the response to the coronavirus outbreak and the local level activities.
That's all right. That's all right. We know how it is working at home. Do you need to do anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Carry on. Carry on.
Where would you put it on the wall? Sorry, yes. And so it really shows this tension between the centralised response to the outbreak by the government and the real need to engage with local authorities and local government much sooner in the response, and why it hasn't been much more of a fruitful relationship between these two levels of governance.
But I don't understand why the Mayor doesn't seem to have had access to this Pillar 2 data, because today the Prime Minister's spokesman said that since 11th of June, an operational dashboard has been made available by NHS Digital, which included counts of local tests all the way down to street level. So is it just too complex for local authorities to understand?
But I think it's also, there's been a very different approach there's a very different disaggregated level of who's creating what data. So you've got to remember that the NHS is collecting some data, we've got Public Health England collecting other data, we've got government collecting other data and through the ONS. So there's just multiple strands of data, and perhaps it's not thoroughly being collated between different bodies so that the full picture can be given to local authorities.
OK, so are we now saying today, from the statements we've had from the government, do we now think that Public Health England is publishing what everybody needs to see, right down to a sort of local government level? And in that case, do we say, well, Leicester's been useful, we've got an example, and we're improving our systems as a result?
Yes, so so we're hoping so, and it's a learning process. So now we're moving to this new approach of these, local lockdowns. It's part of the learning process to really understand how this is happening. Now, quite honestly, this should have happened a long time ago, in my opinion. But here we are in this situation, and so how can we improve it for the inevitable lockdowns which might come further down the road? We've seen the statistics saying the other hotspots of concern might be in Barnsley and Bradford, and so how can we make sure that they're getting the right data now so we don't have this problem again?
What's your daughter called?
She's called Scarlett.
Scarlett, I think it looks better on the lower shelf. And it's a lovely unicorn. It's a lovely unicorn. OK, so obviously...
What's his name?
And do stop me if you need to crack on. Do tell us.
I'm good, what's his name?
My name is Christian.
What's his name?
His name's Christian.
Christian.
Yes.
That's deciding where it can go, where Mummy wants it to go.
Oh, right. Where does Mummy want it to go?
I think just on that shelf is great. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
This is the most informative interview I've done all day. So just very quickly, I'm just going to put one last one to you. Obviously, this data that they're compiling depends hugely on the track and trace system, doesn't it? Do you think that we are now getting the right sort of data in a timely fashion?
Well, I think it depends on what you mean by the right sort of data. I mean, in an ideal world, we wouldn't need to have to do this kind of local level data, and we wouldn't need to have these questions of who's got the right data, are we shutting down different cities in different ways, are we putting lockdown in different places? Because if we had a functioning track or trace system, we'd be able to target exactly who it is in those cities who is at risk, who's had it, and who they've been in contact with, and we'd be in a much better position to not risk the broader economic issues which come along with lockdown. And so actually, you know, we're getting some way to trying to figure out the issues with the data, but we're still not being able to get that data of exactly who and who they've been in contact with and utilize that in a meaningful way to mitigate against further lockdowns at local or national level.
Okay. Scarlett needs looking after. We're going to let you go. You're very busy. I can see you've got your hands full. But Dr. Claire Whelan, thanks for being with us. Well done, you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.